through South LA. Now, this came all the way down from the Northeast Division through downtown, all the way down Figueroa. He was flying all the way down towards the 105 freeway, which is where we find ourselves right now, near Linwood on the south side of the 105 freeway, shooting north as he heads directly into LAX's airspace, which is going to prevent us from following him. You can see him right there way off in the distance. Looks like he's right around 96th Street there to give you a mile marker, but he is heading northbound, parallel with the 110 freeway, heading back towards downtown. We're going to try and keep eyes on this crew right here. That is the pursuit package right behind him. He's not going to get very far on that dirt bike, but he has been occasionally running red lights, going the wrong way on surface streets, has not been on the freeway just yet, but he is definitely traveling at very manageable speeds. That is not a high-speed motorcycle. It is indeed, it appears to be a motorbike, and they are right on his tail. So hopefully they will be there when he runs out of gas or comes to a stop, hopefully peacefully. Again, keep in mind, he is armed with a weapon, guys.
Yeah, and what makes me cringe when we watch these motorcycle pursuits, and you've seen them before, Chris, is there's no protection for that motorcycle rider. So if they get into any kind of collision, it could be fatal, and right in the middle of this urban environment.
Yeah, it's very difficult. You know, motorcycles, dirt bikes, motorbikes, they are very agile. They are more agile than a patrol car, so they can squeeze into places. Moments ago, he was flying through a very narrow alleyway that LAPD had trouble keeping up with him through because it was so narrow. Those are the kinds of things that those motorcycles are able to do, but one wrong twist of that wrist, and it is curtains for the driver, and obviously putting other drivers at risk in the process during these dangerous pursuits. Very erratic driving by the part of this driver and doing very high speeds for that motorcycle. For that particular vehicle, he is actually going pretty quick, quick enough to get hurt, but like I said, not quite fast enough to escape the eyes of LAPD, especially with that airship right overhead. They are pointing that camera right at him, following his each and every move as he twists and turns through the neighborhood. LAPD's ground units will continue to stay right on top of them. If they lose him, they will catch up with him, especially with that airship right overhead. He will look for spots to hide out. He will look for any nook or cranny he could find to try and squeeze through. But inevitably, with a situation like this, he is not going to get very far, and considering the charges, I suspect they will not let him get very far.
Yeah, and we haven't seen a pursuit exactly like this. At least I can't remember another pursuit involving a dirt bike. So authorities really cannot use the same methods that they would use with someone in a vehicle, for example, a pit maneuver or a spike strip. So
right.
what would they
with
do in this
motorbikes,
case?
yeah. Well, right now they have the advantage of having a artillery of vehicles. He is on a very limited, a vehicle with very limited capabilities. You're right. No spike strip, no pit maneuver. They can't do anything aggressive like that, and they have to treat him with even more care because of the knowledge, the intel apparently that he is armed with a weapon. They have to,
squeezed through
approach
that
this
little
very
alley.
delicately. He squeezed right through there. It's the second time he's done that. By the way, I should also mention earlier on in this pursuit near downtown, there was a suspicion that he tossed something during the pursuit. I saw something else flying. He's obviously got a cell phone in his hand right now, but what he tossed is still up in the air in terms of I don't know what it was. Whether was it the actual weapon? Was it some other piece of evidence? We don't know, but something was tossed. Not sure if they were able to retrieve it. If it was the gun, obviously that'll make things better, but they don't know that. They have to treat him as if he is still armed. That is the best intel they have. As he now pulls into this gas station, he will be cornered here momentarily. He will not have much time to do anything, but he's got several seconds for them to catch up here. So as he basically looks around,
looks like he's trying to get gas.
Here's the helicopters. He is trying to get gas, and that little maneuver that he pulled through that alleyway apparently was able to put some distance between him and that unit. But keep in mind, the helicopter is right overhead. LAPD's airship has eyes on the suspect, and I'm a little bit surprised that they haven't been able to triangulate yet, but they will be pulling in here, guys. I've got to believe any second.
Wow, he's
pump,
taken off with the hose.
Pulled the pump. This
Yeah.
is really getting crazy really quick.
The pay system was not working for him, so he was getting frustrated. He couldn't get gas in fast enough. In fact, he couldn't get it in at all. And I think we need to keep in mind, though, that this is a guy, he's on a cell phone, driving with one hand with no helmet.
So dangerous.
Any kind of collision could kill this guy. And, you know, let's be obvious here. He is in an urban terrain on a dirt bike. Maybe that's good for law enforcement because he has to stay on the streets, but if he can get on a trail and find those little nooks and crannies like we saw him, Chris, that's his advantage. Staying on the asphalt obviously is not, but if he must be low on gas, otherwise there's no way he would take that time to try to gas up.
He's got to be, and he knows it. Obviously, as you mentioned, that's why he's pulling in. He wouldn't have even done that if he wasn't low on gas, but he's on limited fuel no matter what. The only hope for him is that he can find a spot if he decides to just give up or try and hide out. That would be his best move, but he is not showing any signs of pulling over here, and now they're right on his tail again. So again, as I mentioned earlier, the likelihood of him getting very far from law enforcement is really, really low, and those chances are diminishing by the second here. But these dangerous maneuvers are definitely posing a threat to him, especially without that helmet, and also a threat to anybody else during this rush hour as he traverses South LA. Again, as you mentioned, a very urban landscape here, doing high speeds on surface streets, lots of pedestrians out, lots of other traffic down here trying to go about their business, and they are trying to keep up with him as he goes street by street here. Now on 87th Street through South LA, continuing with all the speed bumps, all the dips in the road at a very high clip here, trying to put some distance between him and that primary unit. There's another unit going the opposing way. He just passed another LAPD SUV, was unable to do anything there, and now he's going to come up. I think that's the freeway. That, I believe, is it. What is that, Rob? Is that a train? It's a train track, maybe? I can't tell what that is. That's the train. Yeah, it's the Alameda train track there. He is now traveling southbound on possibly Beach Boulevard, picking up a little speed here. I'm not sure if he's even going the right way, but he did make a left turn there. He might come out behind these houses here, and it may not even be a street at all. There he is. There he is. It's a surface street. LAPD is behind him here. He's continuing southbound, now approaching 92nd, a right turn on 92nd, going westbound now on 92nd Street through Watts, and LAPD once again is within feet of this motorbike.
While he's doing that, we're going to show some quick video of that gas station incident where you could see him pull in. And if you notice, I think he's trying to do some sort of payment through his cell phone.
Yes, he's using his phone. He's using his phone.
He's quickly trying to move.
Apple Pay or something.
You know how it is when you gas up,
Yes.
and it asks you all these questions first. He's trying to pay first, and then here he's frustrated. We've advanced it, and he just drives off with the hose attached to him and takes off.
Yeah, desperate behavior. And Chris, I was going to say, we've seen pursuit suspects actually meet other people on the road to escape. They go under an underpass, they jump into another car. He's been on the phone for quite some time. Perhaps he is trying to negotiate or plan an escape for himself.
Yeah, something like that, Giovanna. I think you're right. I don't think he really knows where he intends on going. I don't think he's going to get very far. Here comes cross traffic at Century Boulevard, right through there. I think he might have had, I'm not even sure if that was a red light or a stop sign, or maybe he had the green light. Either way, he's continuing through Century, now coming up on 101st Street. But as you were saying, Giovanna, I think he is looking for an out here. Why else would he be on his phone? And also, that agitation that you saw at the gas station is going to become very evident in the driving. He's been very competent behind the wheel here, but, that's going to change as his adrenaline begins to exhaust. And so he has very limited options in front of him here. He's really desperate, and I think that maneuver at the gas station is really evidence of that. They're going to take all of that into consideration and maybe even apply less pressure at some point and use the airship to basically coordinate and get units in the direction he's going instead of putting all these people in danger. Because right now, you know, he's really speeding through these intersections, and he's not stopping for any stop signs or red lights. He really has stopped for very few. I mean, he's been very competent, but like I said, it just takes one wrong move, and now you've got a whole different situation. The liability for LAPD changes dramatically, but right now they are on his tail. I just think there's a possibility that they may back off at some point, depending on where he takes them and depending on traffic ahead of them. Again, all of those decisions are being made by the supervisor and the watch commander here, who are supervising this pursuit, making the calls from northeast, and they are going to make those very calculated decisions as he now comes up on the freeway. He may even have an opportunity to, is he going under the freeway? Yeah. Under the freeway. Okay, he went under the freeway, under the 105, now in Compton, 117th place, and you can see him, a much better view of the driver now. Again, just the mere fact that he is driving like this without a helmet makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up, because like you said, David, one wrong move and it's over.
Yeah, and with one hand, because the other hand he's holding his phone. We're nearing the half-hour mark. Just want to say that we will continue to follow this on our streaming channel. But at 6:30, we will turn it over to World News Tonight with David Muir. But in the meantime, we will continue to follow this pursuit. Yeah,
he's at a disadvantage because if it was open terrain, he could take that open terrain and that would work to his advantage. But right now, being in this environment, he's staying on the streets. He doesn't have the acceleration. Well, he has acceleration. He just doesn't have the top-end speed that these vehicles have that are pursuing him. And there he is talking on the phone with somebody. It's on speaker mode, obviously, and he's trying to listen and talk, and as Giovanna said, this could be something that he's trying to arrange, or who knows? He's really driving recklessly. He was going no hands there for a second there.
This is dangerous under normal circumstances, but with with a live hot pursuit, the risk here is amplifying by the second. This is why I'm so nervous and really have to wonder if they have any intention of giving him a little bit of space. Let him breathe for just a second. They have his location. They know where he is. They've got the airship right overhead. There's dozens of cameras on him at this point. It's just a matter of time. And if they pull back, it might have the effect of calming the situation down and maybe slowing him down without getting lost. But it doesn't look like they're going to do that. Right now, they are no more than about 40 feet behind him, airship right overhead as he continues this phone conversation. God only knows what in the world he is planning here. But obviously, these are his final few moments of freedom. It's just a matter of time before this comes to an end, and we can only hope it comes to a peaceful one.
Well, we can almost push in on his phone. It looks like
the font is pretty big.
He's zipping through multiple people to call right now. But perhaps they're not pulling off of this pursuit, Chris, because of the gas station incident, knowing that he's low on fuel. Perhaps they think, oh, he's going the wrong way. He's going the wrong way now.
Going the wrong way. Going the wrong way on El Segundo Boulevard. In the bike lane. He's going the wrong way on the bike lane on El Segundo Boulevard, traveling westbound on the eastbound side. And I don't even know, to be honest, if he intended on doing that. Now he's got a median in between him and law enforcement. So he, let's see if he looks for an opportunity. Honestly, his best bet would be to make a left turn, but he may try and get back on the correct side of the road. Or, I mean, look at him. He is not even looking where he's going at times as he continues another phone conversation. He is dialing buddies up like there's no tomorrow. I mean, I don't know who in the world he's calling. I mean, he's coming within inches of oncoming traffic as he carries on these conversations. This is at least the second time he is actually talking into the speakerphone like he's on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, trying to figure out who his lifeline is and trying to figure out where he's going to hide this bike. It's unbelievable what we're seeing here. Now he's on the correct side of El Segundo Boulevard, straddling the double yellow line, standing up on the bike, really playing a game of cat and mouse with these law enforcement officers. LAPD is aware of the game. They're in on it now, and now they have real decisions to make because he is making this more and more dangerous by the second. We said it moments ago. It really changed. The entire profile of this pursuit changed at that gas station, and now he is really toying with these officers.
I think he's about to run out of gas, and this is his last hurrah, and he's going to go down with a little bit of glory. I think that's what's going on right here. He knows his end is near. and he can't take this very
It's a
much
joyride.
longer.
It's a joyride, and he may very well know he's on live television across the entire city right now.
Yeah,
I would not be surprised at all as he's dialing one after another, still talking to people. Who's going to bail him out? That's probably his next call.
And somebody might be telling him, you are on television right now. They have a good shot of you. Do something.
He doesn't seem phased at all by the danger of what he's doing. But, and they're following him likely because he is an armed robbery suspect and is perhaps armed and dangerous.
Okay, and just, Chris, let you know that we have 1 minute left on our broadcast right now. He's going on off-road.
Off-roading.
Okay, quickly, everybody,
Off-roading,
we're going to go to World News Tonight in a few seconds, but we will move this over to digital. So we're staying on top of this, just to let you go. Go ahead, Chris, we have 1 minute left.
Yeah, one of those advantages of a motorcycle. He's now off-roading through Magic Johnson Park as he makes his way onto Wadsworth. LAPD is not going to keep up with him through the park. No evidence of them following him through the park, but they are paralleling him on El Segundo Boulevard. LAPD's airship right overhead, calling out his location.
Yeah, I can't believe that he's going along parallel with them. You'd think tactically he would go the other direction.
He's right back on El Segundo Boulevard. He's right back on the main.
Maybe he's not comfortable actually being off-road on a motorcycle, but who knows what's going on here.
And
but
now we have a little traffic
he
jam.
seems to be playing, what was that? Did he just lose his cell phone?
Threading the needle through the red light. I think he hit a mirror. He hit the driver's mirror, I believe. Or maybe,
gotcha.
Yeah. Passenger mirror.
Yeah,
He hit
no,
the
he still has
passenger
the
mirror.
phone.
10 seconds away, everybody. We're going now to World News Tonight with David Muir. Join us on digital, abc7.com, and our streaming channels. We're moving right over there right now.
And we continue to follow this police pursuit of a suspect who is believed to be armed and dangerous and believed to be an armed robbery suspect. He's on a dirt bike, as you can see, and he's been driving very, very dangerously without a helmet, carrying a phone in his left hand, sometimes letting go of the bike handles altogether.
And trying to get gas unsuccessfully. So now we are waiting for him to either run out of gas or perhaps get in an accident because of his recklessness. Chris Christie over at Air 7. Chris?
Yeah, I can tell you he is apparently on the phone with one of our photographers.
What?
Somehow he has managed to reach ABC7, or we're going to try and get more on the conversation. He has reached out to us, and I'm just fielding some text messages here from our photographer Marcel Melanson, who flies in Air 7 in the morning. Right now, he is doing circles in this park. This is Athens Park at Broadway. And he's just doing donuts now in the park. No sign of law enforcement here. He is no longer on the phone. If you noticed, before he got into the park here, he actually slowed down a little bit. And now he's, what in the world? He just...
What? Did somebody leave?
He got somebody
Somebody
to put
left fuel
gas
for
in
him.
a
Is that
gallon
fuel?
container for him and leave it in the park. He just put gas in that bike.
Didn't put
Somebody
much.
was able to drop gas off.
Oh, 'cause
in
the
middle
cops
of
were
the park. LAPD, look at people running through the park. LAPD in the park, now
Yeah.
crossing through this major intersection. That's Broadway and El Segundo Boulevard. People running for their lives through the park as he now tries to flee LAPD after a fresh gallon of gas that somebody left waiting for him in that park. This is unbelievable.
Wow, we've kind of established a lot of precedent lately, Chris, in multiple pursuits, and that's a first again. Somebody leaving fuel in a park, he finds it, but the police came up to him right when he was transferring the fuel into his vehicle, and as a result, he had to drop it quickly and move on. He got a little bit in there, but a lot fell on the ground.
Unbelievable what we are seeing. I've never seen anything like this in all of my years of covering pursuits. He just coordinated a drop-off, filled up with, or I don't know if he filled up, but put a little bit of gas in that tank that was waiting for him in the middle of the park, and managed to now get back on the road. He's now northbound on Fig. He's northbound on Fig at 129th Street. LAPD back behind him. If you notice, the speeds are not what they were as he gets back on surface road. Look at this, through a major intersection. That was El Segundo. Now back on El Segundo from Fig, traveling westbound on El Segundo Boulevard. And, you know, you just have to wonder what's going through his mind. I'm trying to get some more intel from our own sources here. Apparently, there's a line of mutual connections that have led him to be on the phone at some point earlier on. One of the calls was to our morning photographer in Air 7, it was obviously trying to get him to pull over, by the way, trying to talk some sense into him, but does not seem to have worked. LAPD still right on his tail now, northbound on Vermont Avenue at 126th Street, and now meeting up with another biker. Not sure if they know each other, but now it gets interesting. Now you've got two bikers in front of that primary unit. And now he is gesturing to law enforcement right behind him, standing up on the bike here, now picking up a little bit of speed, northbound on Vermont Avenue. LAPD cruising right along with him. More bikers in the picture here. This is going to get hairy, guys.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
It does seem like something has been coordinated, unless this is coincidence and these guys are just trying to find him, but
he's gesturing with his hand.
It does seem like they're all comfortable with each other. Like, they don't seem to be strangers, but maybe they are, and this is a moment for them. Who knows? But this is fascinating. And again, Chris, new ground that we're breaking when it comes to pursuits in Los Angeles.
Just when you thought you've seen it all, this is really, I mean, it really takes on a new level of concern here. He's continuing to drive recklessly, blowing through major intersections, obviously not in the right frame of mind. Whatever robbery he committed pales in comparison to what he's doing now. The consequences are going to be so much worse as he continues on here. Now you see LAPD's airship holding right there. They can't go much further north because they are also approaching LAX's airspace as he now makes a right turn on Imperial Highway, paralleling the 105 freeway. They can continue following him along the 105 just as we will, as we remain on the south side of the 105 freeway.
Chris,
he's now traveling eastbound. Yep.
We're showing him trying to gas up. Watch how quickly this runs right now. Oh,
but he did get some in.
He got some in, yes. But then he sees a police car approaching, so he has the phone in his mouth, as you can see. He sees a police car approaching, and then he takes off again. See, there's a police car. And so as a result, he couldn't transfer all the gas into his vehicle, and then he takes off recklessly at that. And that is a fascinating thing to see. He coordinated with somebody who left the gas.
Oh, running through here. Look at that.
Yeah.
That is Imperial Highway at Figueroa. Another wild left turn there. A crazy maneuver right in front of another black and white. And now he continues on Figueroa Street, northbound Figueroa, really testing. I mean, he has 9 lives, this guy. It's unbelievable. He is now northbound Figueroa at 111th Street. Again, not breaking any speed records, but the dangerous driving here is not stopping at all. And he is desperate, still desperate to get away, and still thinks he has a chance as he dials anybody he can. I can now confirm for you that he was begging for more bikes to get involved. He's dialing everybody in his phone. He is literally dialing everybody in his phone, looking for gas and looking for more bikes to get away. He is looking for a getaway bike. He is looking for more bikers to get involved. He thinks he's going to throw off law enforcement, and he is asking anybody he knows to bring him more gas. That is what we are hearing from that last phone call with our own Marcel Melanson, who is connected to this fellow by 2 or 3 degrees of separation. He dialed Marcel apparently by accident, and now is begging for help. Marcel obviously has been trying to talk some sense into it, but he has not been on the phone now for several minutes, and obviously has had no effect as he continues this dangerous, dangerous game of cat and mouse. Even though this is a joyride, guys, you can't stress enough just how desperate a situation this is for everybody involved. I guarantee you, LAPD wants to bring this to an end as soon as possible.
Irresponsible, total disregard for, the lives of others on the road. So dangerous. And so many twists and turns in this story. He is really very bold, whoever this young man is.
So because of what you said, Chris, possibly those two bikers that he ran up on, maybe they answered the call, but then they pulled off. At first, I thought they might have been carrying something. I don't know, but obviously the police were right by there, so that transfer is never going to happen. Maybe he's thinking if he gets a lot of bikers on the road, he could somehow hide in the crowd and transfer
camouflage
over to another bike and find
job.
a way. Yeah, the Italian job,
Italian
exactly.
job finale.
So, yeah, trying to make Hollywood come to life. But we need to tell our viewers,
doing a good job of that.
Yeah, he's moving towards LAX airspace, right? So that's why a little bit of a long lens on this one.
Yeah, traveling northbound Figueroa at 91st Street with a full pursuit package right behind him. 5 units in tow here, paralleling the 110 freeway, where traffic is getting busier on Figueroa. I mean, just look at this iconic shot right through the trees here as we peer through, trying to maintain a visual of the suspect here. As you mentioned, he is traveling further north into LAX airspace, and we may be in a position here, unless he turns to the right or turns around, we may have to lose him momentarily and come around Alameda to meet up with him on the north side of LAX's airspace. That'll take a little bit of time. We're going to continue to do our very best and try and keep an eye on him here. But you will lose him here in just a second. We're going to keep the camera trained squarely on this suspect, who is continuing the ride of his life here. Again, the one thing that LAPD was aware of is that he was armed with a gun or a weapon. What we don't know is whether that weapon is still on him, but it almost doesn't matter, because for now, as they continue this dangerous ride, they are going to treat him as if he is still armed.
Yeah, okay. So while Chris is doing that and trying to figure out how to do that, and we'll keep an eye on that police helicopter, because that is the giveaway on where this pursuit is. So we will not lose the pursuit thanks to that police helicopter, although that police helicopter still has restrictions as well, right, Chris? So he can't go into that LAX restricted area either.
He is in it. He is talking to air traffic control. He's very limited with what he could do, but he is currently in it, and it does look like, at least from my vantage point, this is a guess, I don't hear him right now, but it does look to me like he has eyes on it. He's continuing to kind of orbit tightly right around the direction that motorcycle was traveling. We're going to lose a little bit of distance here in a second.
We're going to show some video while you're maneuvering. Yeah. We're going to kind of recap what happened in this pursuit. Now, right now, you're looking at some video of him taking that very dangerous left turn, squeezing through 2 cars and a police car, and then taking that left turn. And it's luckily these drivers have been paying attention, but look how narrow this little entryway, this alleyway is that he took between those 2 cars, and then he takes that left turn. Here's what's interesting. When I looked up how many gallons a dirt bike has, it carries only 1.5 to 2.5 gallons of fuel. And then we're going to show another video here when he's going to be standing up, kind of showboating here.
Yes, he sure was.
In the sunlight. So a dirt bike only carries 1.5 to 2.5 gallons. That is it. And that probably is part of the desperation to get some fuel. However, on the flip side of that, a dirt bike is capable of getting 25 to 60 miles per gallon. So depending on how much he has, this could still go for a little while. But in essence, though, only being able to carry a couple of gallons, you don't have a lot of opportunity to go a long way. And here he is, part of that desperation, Giovanna, trying to go to the gas station, watch him try to use his phone. I think he tried to do an Apple Pay or something.
Yes, that's exactly what he was trying to do, just to make it quick. Sometimes, to your point, you have to answer a couple of questions. So not sure there if he was able to get any gas when the units arrived. He took off. We do have some clarification now from the LAPD media relations telling us there is actually no word on whether he was involved in a robbery or any other crime prior to this pursuit. We have been saying he was wanted for armed robbery. Now we're getting some clarification that hasn't been confirmed, is not clear.
Yeah, that was the early report on it. And there he is, he's kind of dirt biking, which surprised me that he didn't do that sooner. But he's going through a park here. This is
Athens Park.
That's Athens Park.
Yes, that's Athens Park.
That is before the gas, right? So he goes up this park, And then I think he goes left again,
Oh,
Giovanna.
okay, so Athens Park is the park where he got the jug of gas.
Okay, so let's watch closely as he goes through the trails, and you see the police on the left-hand side. It surprised me that he worked his way back towards the street, but maybe he's using the street as a guide to get to the gas, and maybe that's what he was looking for all along when he got to the park. So he's searching, and then
Now he's in Athens Park.
he spots it.
Sees the jug.
There's the jug, grabs it, opens it up, gets a little bit in there. He looks up here, and then he sees there's a cop car. He just spotted it, so he's got to get out. And
then
looks
he
like
pauses a second.
Well, it looks like he's having a tough time getting into gear. I don't know if you've ever ridden motorcycles. It's been many years for me, but I used to ride them as a kid. You got to pop that. You put it in the clutch. You got to sometimes downshift or upshift in order to get it into gear to get it to moving again. And it looked like he was having some trouble getting it in gear, and then he took off. And another dangerous maneuver there. But maybe that was the whole reason why he went into the park to look for that gas, and that might have been what he was doing all along. But I suspected that he would be using these more rural terrains and parks, et cetera, in order to get away from police, but he hasn't seemed comfortable for that at all. Chris, how you doing? Are you close?
Well, he turned around. He was traveling northbound on Fig. Now he's turned around. He's now going back southbound on Fig. You can see the LAPD airship on the east side of the 110 freeway. Now making a turn. Not sure if he's turning. He is turning, I think. I think he is maneuvering through here. I think he's on the other side of the freeway. Maybe he's crossed over. Unfortunately, we're also competing with the sun here as we look into the sun just behind just off the horizon, right behind the 110 freeway here. So we're looking directly into the sun with a lot of glare. But I think that airship is circling the vicinity of where the suspect may be traversing. But moments ago, he did turn around. He was going northbound on Fig, then turned around and started going southbound, and we're trying to get a beat on his most recent location. But it does look like he's continuing to make random turns through South LA.
And perhaps this is where he's most familiar. We've seen it in the past. Suspects will circle the areas that they're most familiar with, and he's pretty much stayed in the South LA area.
Well, we have talked, Chris, recently about how do people get away from police pursuits.
Go ahead, Vanessa.
I'm going to let Chris take that call. He's trying to figure out some more intel and information. But keep your eye on that police helicopter. As long as that police helicopter is there hovering, they're on to something there. So we're thinking that eventually will lead us to this rider, because this is restricted airspace. They can't go towards LAX in this restricted airspace. And if you want to talk about how to get away from police in a pursuit, sometimes with that restricted airspace, there's less ability to keep track of them. And then, Giovanna, we've talked about parking garage, and malls.
Okay, we're getting word
some
that
information
he was. Okay, so we cannot see
He's
him.
coming this way, guys. We're going to catch a glimpse of him here in just a second. He's traveling eastbound on 111th Street, which is actually right where that airship is, right over Broadway and 111th. He was last seen eastbound on 111th. We're going to try and get a glimpse of him here in just
we're
a
getting
second.
word he crashed and he's on foot now.
Maybe that's what they're looking for, is him. Anyway, it could be conflicting information. Obviously, this is all on the fly and fluid.
On foot. On foot?
He's on foot. He crashed. He's on foot.
Okay.
112th
Okay, guys,
and
I'm
Broadway.
sorry. A lot going on in my ear here. David and Giovanna, long story short, a lot of confusion, but the bottom line is he appears to have dumped the bike. He is now running through private property and jumping fences on foot as he tries to find a hiding spot from LAPD. Whether that airship has eyes on him or not, I believe he does, but I don't know. I can't confirm that. But what we do know is he is running through private property. The pursuit, at least the vehicle portion of this pursuit, is over. They will quickly form a containment area, a perimeter around San Pedro, between San Pedro and the 110 freeway, and they will lock this neighborhood down, especially with the knowledge that he may have been armed, because now there's always the possibility of a home invasion or anything like that. And so with those details, it really becomes a much more dangerous situation.
It
but
sure
at least
does.
the pursuit is over.
Right, and if you're watching us and you live in this neighborhood, stay inside, lock your doors, close your windows.
Yeah, he could invade any home, and we've seen that in the past when it comes to these pursuits. When they come to an end, these guys are desperate, and they'll break into any place possible in order to hide from police. So beware of that if you're in that neighborhood, and obviously do not try to help them.
Who's that from? Oh. All right, so
Well, we see units on the ground.
if you can,
Yeah, go ahead. Go
yeah,
ahead,
if
Chris.
you can hear me,
There's people.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to step over you guys. I just have so much in my ear, but I just want to tell you that LAPD does have eyes on him. He is now hiding in a trash bin in one of these properties, and that appears to be most likely his final hiding spot. This will probably, in all likelihood, turn into something of a standoff unless he gets out of it peacefully. But he is now hiding in a trash can. LAPD with eyes on the trash bin or recycling bin, something like that. And it appears it's right between 111th and 112th. You see more patrol cars in the frame here. There is additional backup now on their way out here. Widen out just a little bit, Rob, and see if you see anything on this side of the street. It looks like they do have both sides cornered here. They need to bring in more units to form a solid perimeter just in case he goes running again. But somewhere in this frame, in this group of homes, there is a trash bin, and he appears to be hiding in it.
Well, that can't last long, that's for sure. And we're getting conflicting reports that he may or may not have been armed, may or may not have been. Oh, here we go. That's him.
That's him.
That's him.
There
You got
he
him,
is.
Chris.
There's
There he
something
is.
on
He
the
is
ground
out
there.
of the bin. There is something on the ground. I see that object. Can't make out what it is quite yet. Robbie zooming in all the way.
Flip-flop.
He has dropped something on the ground. Still has his phone to his ear. As it appears, LAPD has the suspect at gunpoint along the 200 block of 112th Street. He is going to put that down, and it appears that he is now willing to comply with those orders as LAPD takes him into custody momentarily at gunpoint. The entire arrest team at the end of this alley waiting with handcuffs.
Well, coming to a safe conclusion, but this was quite the stressful pursuit to watch, Chris, and a lot of firsts that we saw in this one.
Now, why do they still have their guns pointed down there? That tells me he may know somebody in this area, somebody who might have been trying to help him hide. He may not have randomly pulled in here. At least that's a possibility, because why else would they be now running up here? Look, this is very unusual, as they now approach private property with their guns drawn in the area where he was just hiding out moments ago. Now it really makes you wonder how well he knew this area. He may have known this area much better than we ever gave him credit for, and that may be why he eventually found his way back over here. In fact, I mean, just the mere knowledge that he knew enough or knew somebody close enough to Athens Park to drop that jug of gas off tells you, this guy knows a bunch of people. There's a bunch of people in that contact list that he was dialing, and I have a feeling this area may very well be near his home base, or at least an area he might have been familiar with. But they are now treating this property as a suspect property where there may be accomplices in or around the vicinity here. This is a bit of speculation on my part, guys, but I'm just kind of deducing from what we're seeing here. This is very unusual with the knowledge that they have the driver. Clearly, that is him, now in custody, but they are now scouring this private property right here on 112th Street.
Yeah, Chris, and to your point, I was also wondering if they were looking for anything he might have dropped, anything of evidence, maybe a weapon.
Yeah, and also what we don't know is what else he may have dropped during the course of this pursuit. They may actually have those items. We just don't know what they were, if they were able to retrieve them. They're now going through the bins. That appears to be one of the bins where he was hiding out. You see officers now going through these bins. Their guns are no longer drawn, but this is now a collection of evidence as they start to really stack up the charges on this fella after just an absolutely nail-biting chase, guys.
All right, Chris, we're going to quickly go through all the interesting video on this really frightening pursuit at times. And there he is at a distance trying to escape from police. He is on the cell phone, and we've noticed no helmet at all. So the concern obviously was if there is a collision, it could be a fatal collision very quickly and easily. So he's trying to get away from police. And then we see him, that's him going down the street, then desperately, Giovanna, trying to get some gas.
That's right. You see we see him using his phone to try to get some gas as quickly as possible. And he does get the pump into his bike, but then drives off. I think when he sees the units, you know, nearing where he was. So then he just takes off with a hose, which is remarkable.
Yeah, and he got rid of the hose, but that was tricky. And then after that, we were watching him talk on the phone. And so there was that moment where he's going the wrong way down the street, and then he gets right in the middle of the street, backlit by the sun, and he seems to even slow down and just stand up and almost pose for the cameras for everybody while he is
as if he is having the best time of his life, riding with his friends. And what was interesting too, the other bikers that joined him on the road, we saw that too. I don't know if we have the video.
That was short-lived, but then from here though is when he goes into the park. And now finally he's off-roading, thinking that maybe he's using the off-road ability, maneuverability of this bike to get away from police. But I think what was actually happening is somehow he's finding his way through a park looking for gas that somebody had left for him.
Right. He was at Irving Magic Johnson Park first. Now you see him at Athens Park, and this is where he finds a jug of gasoline. Picks it up pretty calmly, tries to put it inside, and but again, the authorities aren't too far behind. And as soon as he sees that, he stops. He drops the jug of gas and then continues. Has a minute to restart the bike there. Takes a minute to do that, but then he takes off again, continuing to drive so dangerously and recklessly for others and himself.
The way he got through there, and then also we have this shot right here when he squeezed through these two cars and takes a hard left turn. Keep in mind, he's going the wrong way first. Then he squeezes these cars, blindly goes that left turn, and luckily nobody was coming that way and nobody hit him, but he narrowly escaped a number of times. So back live, there he is at the bottom of your frame. He is in custody now. He seemed to be limping when they walked him backwards, but they do have him in custody. He did either crash or dump the bike and took off running. That took a few minutes. He hid in a trash bin. Obviously, they had eyes on him the whole time, and they were able to locate him and get him out. So this thing is coming to a conclusion.
And now facing a long list of charges.
He will be facing a long list of charges. And that's it for The Pursuit. Thank you all for joining us. We're going to, of course, have a big wrap-up of everything that happened in this pursuit tonight on Eyewitness News at 11 o'clock. Thanks for joining us. And Chris, if you're still there, thank you so much.
You got it.